Hello, Guardians. Today is September the 1st, 2023. Crota's End Raid Day. My name's Danfinity, and welcome to Destiny Digest. We have a banger of a show for you today. We have Haterade on the show talking about his philosophy and his style of putting together different PvE builds for different content in Destiny 2. We also will have more information about the Crota's End raid race happening here in just a few hours. If you're going for day one completion, I'm rooting for you. I hope that you have a blast. I hope that you get it done. Just a reminder that in order to compete for World's First, you have to go through and do the entire raid once on challenge difficulty, and then again with each of the individual encounter challenges active to be in contention for the belt. I'll be rooting you guys on from the sidelines. And I just hope you guys have a great time. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the news. I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks here at the end of September. Jenny and I are going to Germany. We'll be in Belgium. We'll be in the UK for a couple of weeks. So there will still be episodes of Destiny Digest coming out. And one of them, I have a plan for it to be a 1-year retrospective almost. So if you have any moments from the past year that you would like memorialized in this 1 year in review style episode, if you want to take part in this, if you can get me the timestamps for the moments that you enjoyed from the show, specific episodes, you name it, just be as specific as possible. I'm going to try to keep it under 90 minutes. We've had a lot of excellent guests over the past year, some that I wouldn't have even thought would be possible. Broman was a huge one on my bucket list, and Ben was just incredibly kind with his time. So all this to say, timestamps, episodes, guests, topics, things along those lines, get those to me. You can send those to me via email, dan@danfinity.dg, or you can just shoot me a DM where at any of my socials, usually at DanfinityGG. Thank you so much. It's a huge milestone to celebrate, and I want your input, so let me know. This week in Destiny, we got a few things. We had loadouts turn back on in the hotfix that was released on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we also received a huge article from PC Gamer, written by Tim Clark, Joe Blackburn on Destiny 2 conspiracy theories, what happened to the PvP team, and the Witness being able to 1v1 anyone in the universe. In this article, he talks about how Strand wasn't ever intended for the Witch Queen, which is a conspiracy theory that has been floated out into the wild. He also talks about the PvP team that they're putting together, that PvP strike team that he talked about in the video a couple weeks back. He talks about how they will be focusing the general playability of the PvP sandbox and the play space. They're going to be aiming their sights more at players who've spent around 20 hours or more in the Crucible. I kind of like the idea of that. It invests in players who want to spend more time in that space and allows the team to make experiences for that audience without necessarily maybe watering it down for the general populace. I know that like Destiny is a game that is PvE and PvP, and we all like a little bit of our chocolate and our peanut butter. But I do think that it is healthy for these two experiences to have their own identities and to push them to the limit when it comes to Destiny 2. I'm really excited for all my PvP friends out there who are reading this article, and hopefully the promises stack up on this one. They also talked about supers in Destiny 2 coming in the final shape, including a possible tuning for, well, they didn't say nerf, but a possible tuning is possible before the final DLC of the Light and Dark saga releases. One of the things that I've been bandying about for the past few weeks is, will they put a new number on the box? That's kind of been dissuaded at this point with like a little clip from the sidebar where Tim asks, what's stopping you from dropping the 2 from the name at this point? And Joe Blackburn responds, expectations and what rebranding means. I know that can be tough. I also know that the file size for Destiny 2 is is rather large for most consoles. And so I'm eager to see what they do post Final Shape, post the episodes, which they did talk about a little bit, being different than the telenovela approach that we have had in the past, that they will be their own specific experiences. They didn't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but those are intended to help push the story forward and further into the discovery of this universe that we all share as Guardians. They also were pretty adamant that they didn't want the Witness to be a total pushover. We got confirmation that there will be 7 campaign missions in the Final Shape, with an 8th one arriving shortly after the raid. They also talked about the Witness and how it will be a different enemy in the raids compared to Gaul and Callus. Gaul and Callus coming in as an invading force, bringing their armies with them to attack us as Guardians, whereas the Witness is a force of nature and could easily best us in a 1v1. Another thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about in regards to this article, they did mention that Season 23 will start on November 28th. So go ahead and mark your calendars now. November 28th will be the first day of Season 23, and with it will come in-game LFG. One of the quotes from the article around this says, Blackburn describes the challenge as creating a system that works well for new players and players that have not done content before, but also serves the need for advanced players. Saying, what we know is that the system will not work if we do not get Guardian rank 11 players using it. So that means it has to work for someone that's like, hey, I'm going to teach a player how to do a raid, and also for players that need to be able to say, I only have 45 minutes to do this. The entire article is a really good read, so I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description for this episode. This week in Destiny, we got a lot of information pertaining to the raid race when it comes out in just a few scant hours. All Guardians will have 48 hours to complete for challenge mode. You will need to be 1790 power to be at the cap for all encounters to take on the raid. And to give the Bungie servers some room to breathe, there will be no bounty or weapon crafting progress for combatant kills below boss tier within King's Fall and Crota's End while contest mode is enabled. That's a little weird for King's Fall to be involved in that, but you know what? I trust them. They are changing their process for how they award the belts. They will verify that the world's first has been beaten, but they will be going through and doing a security check to make sure that if any rules were broken in the run, that they will push that on to the next team. As we saw in the trailer, Necrochasm is returning. They say players that acquire the Bottomless Pit quest from the raid vendor during the 48-hour contest mode period in Crota's End will have the quest automatically marked as complete and all rewards placed in their inventory immediately. Rewards will include Husk of the Pit, Eidolon Ally, the fully masterworked version of that, and Necrochasm. Players will notice that when they acquire the Essence of Oversoul from completing raid encounters and triumphs, this is required to complete the Bottomless Pit quest if they don't finish within the contest mode, as well as to complete the Weapon Catalyst objective for Necrochasm. During the contest period, players who obtain the Weapon Catalyst will not be able to progress the objective on it, and it will statically show the objective progress at 20 out of 35 Essence of Oversouls collected, regardless of if it's collected additional essences. After contest mode ends, an Essence of Oversoul that the player has acquired thus far will still be respected. That's good. I'm glad that they're not purging that out. And the player may begin making progress on the Catalyst objective, continuing with the number they previously acquired. Players that acquire the Bottomless Pit quest after the 48-hour contest mode will have to complete the quest starting from the beginning to obtain the quest rewards. That's a huge incentive for going in within that first 48 hours, for completing within that first 48 hours. This is a really cool thing that I hope we see more of in the raid race or races to come in the Final Shape. In the player support section, they also talk about raid contest mode disables. So the Tessellation exotic fusion rifle that you get from pre-ordering the Final Shape, that's out. The Warlock Weave Walk aspect, which is currently disabled in all raids and PvP activities, that's gone. The Titan Banner of War aspect, which is incredibly crazy to use and is super powerful, gone from the list. The Foe Tracer Exotic Hunter Helmet, which is kind of crazy. Check out our frequent guest, Revenant, for details on that. The Elemental Munitions mod from the Artifact this season, as well as Overload Hand Cannons, will be disabled. The entire time that the belt is being sought after, there will be a Twitch Rivals stream that's kicking off at 9:30 a.m. PT You can check out Professor Broman, Rec 1568, and Adam Savage. Not that Adam Savage. You can check them out. They'll basically be doing a tailgate of all the competitors that are in the Twitch Rivals, which a lot of our friends, a lot of regulars on the show are in that race. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope for some great placings for all of you. If you tune in for 2 hours, you do get the Twitch drop, the Every End emblem that will be available in your Twitch drops on your account. Starting next week on September 5th, you'll be able to play Iron Banner with your buddies. You can go in and it will be the game mode Fortress. There you'll be able to earn either the Guiding Sight Strand High Impact Scout Rifle or the Point of the Stag Arc Precision Bow that's making its return into the game. That's all for the news this week. Please enjoy this conversation with Haterade. Anyways,
throwing me under the bus.
Haterade, welcome back to Destiny Digest. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me back. It's been a little while. I was trying to think when
it was a couple seasons ago because it's
been a minute.
Yeah, I hadn't looked it up until
and
now.
Like we were saying, you've got and I mean this in a good way, a revolving door of people coming through, and a lot of really great people to have on this podcast in the Destiny community. So, creators with good and bad and questionable takes are plenty in the Destiny community. So, yes. I mean, you have no short supply there. So, I'm just grateful to be back.
I'm just glad to have you. Like, I'm always grateful for any time that anybody gives me for anything because you know how it is. Like, it's an ask, and it's not always. I still haven't found scheduling
can always be that thing where you're like, all right, how do we make this work? You know what I mean?
And lately I need to be better about that too. I need to be asking a little bit earlier than I have. And so I'm just grateful that you were like, yeah, let's play like Tuesday. Yeah. So I appreciate that from you. But how have you been enjoying season of the Witch? How have you been liking the weapons and the loadouts and everything so far?
Well, I just got my loadouts back today, so I'm actually really enjoying that. I didn't get to play it all today. I had just had a busy day, and I downloaded the update and fired it up a little bit before we met up here, and I was just like messing around in my character UI, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Loadouts are back. Yep. Thank goodness. So I clicked over and I'm like, man, I need to redo all these because, new season, new things to take into consideration, new builds to look at. So as far as builds go for the new season, like I've just been pretty much been stuck on like one or two because I'm like, I don't need to really build a whole lot because I know I've got this. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, hopefully when they give them back to us, they're as they were. Yeah. And it's not just a blank slate. Because while it wouldn't be terrible to have to redo everything, it's just kind of like, why would I redo stuff completely when I already have stuff done? Yeah. So I was cautiously optimistic and waiting for them to bring loadouts back and was very grateful to see that a lot of stuff was still there.
Same.
So, but I mean, I've enjoyed the season so far for what it is. I know, a lot of people have been singing the praises for the story this week. I can't speak on it other than what I've seen, just because, like I said, today was kind of crazy busy. Yeah. But from what I've experienced in the season, I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. The storyline seems great. Getting to see Eris transform into like Hive Eris was really cool. And just the story, the direction the storyline is taking. I mean, I know so many people were so excited to see that, okay, now Savathun is finally like back into the mix a little bit, kind of that leave off from
Witch Queen.
Witch Queen, thank you.
Yeah.
The leave off from Witch Queen. So everybody's like, okay, Savathun's back. Now we're getting a little bit of a continuation of the storyline, even though it's in the weekly drip feed style. At least we're getting more and more of Savathun that we've been waiting for. And now Shiva Roth is in the mix. So it's like, all right.
Yeah.
It kind of, I feel more excited for this season and the story than I did really for last season. Last season was just kind of like, okay, let me log in, let me do my deep dives, let me get done what I need to get done, and then go back to doing what I enjoy. But this season so far, I mean, it's still early, but so far it seems like from a storyline aspect, it's it's a lot more exciting, and the activity is great.
Yes.
Also summoning. One of the first takeaways was like, this is an activity where I can literally just load in. I can shut my brain off and I can just shoot aliens in the face while I shoot the shit with friends and just enjoy playing the game.
Yeah.
And not really have to worry about, okay, I gotta go through this strike, or I gotta do this, or I gotta do that. I can just play the game, and I know, every now and then I'm gonna get a chest, I'm gonna get some loot, and then if we want to stop, we can, or we can just keep going. Or if I want to match, I think I've only match made once or twice. I normally go with a full fire team. But like if I want to, I can just match make and play for as long as I want to, and people can dip in and out whenever they want to, and it's no skin off anybody's back. So I like the idea of that. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's a horde mode," and I'm like, "Yeah, kind of, I guess. Maybe not ish, not really, but kind of." From a continuing gameplay aspect, sure.
It's Court of Orcs. It's like back when Court of Orcs existed. Like, it's kind of the same thing, just in its own bespoke arena.
Yeah,
and you're able to just rush in. I like that aspect of, hey, if I want to spend 5 minutes or like 10 minutes in there, or if I want to spend like 2 hours, I can just run it and have it work out. Like that's really cool. I'm really liking some of the weapons from this season. The scout rifle feels a little snappy. From what I've done, it's like Bria's, what is it? Bria's Love.
I was actually pulling up the weapon database for this season because I was like, trying to remember, because I've been kind of glued on a couple, like we were talking earlier about tessellation. Like I've been really glued to trying to figure out really how to make that work and have fun with. And Bria's Love, there it is.
Yeah.
I haven't really played with too many of the seasonal weapons. That's my goal for, I say this week, but obviously with the raid launching on Friday, maybe tomorrow I kind of want to dive in and just spend like a long time playing altars. Yeah. And see what I can get weapon wise, and just mess around with a little bit of stuff here and there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So like, I mean, odds are it's not going to cut into what you're going to be bringing in on day one. Like it. Yeah. A lot of these tools that are available now, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you're bringing to the raid race on Friday. And you're probably, the hand cannon's not going to probably change your mind at all. Like, what are your thoughts on the loot pool in general in Destiny 2 right now? Do you feel like maybe like we have every tool and every iteration of the tool, or?
It's funny because, as when you posted on Twitter earlier today and asking some questions, but I was thinking about like some of the questions I'd seen, and that was one of the things I thought of was, weapons, and in talking to like some of the guys I'm raiding with on day one, and thinking about like, there's nothing we really need to prep weapon wise, because, if you've been playing the game for a while, you pretty much have whatever you need. As far as like anything that's like quote unquote meta or best in slot. I think, who was it? Lego LaFlash. Like, he put out, as he always does, video about one of the new fusion rifles, and it just got me thinking. I was like, we get so wrapped around what is meta, what's best in slot, that's, I think a lot of people forget that it doesn't always need to be that case. Like if you enjoy playing with something, play with it. If you want to try something new, because there are so many things out there. There's so many weapons, so many exotics, so many builds that you can use. And if you're constantly using the same stuff, like you see people with kill trackers, and by no means do I think this is a wrong way to play. Because play the way you want to play and embrace it wholly. But you see people with kill trackers that have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, and it's like, man, I get it, you really like that weapon, but there's so many great healing weapons in the game. There's so many great exotics, so many great builds. Like there's so many tools that you can use to still do well. You don't always have to be like sweating it out, like, oh, I always have to be like max DPS, like top of the DPS leaderboard, slaying out everything to every microsecond as fast as I can. Like, I mean, if that's what you enjoy, hey, more power to you. But I think it has a negative trickle down effect, especially when it comes from word of mouth from a prominent figure, content creator, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, whatever. Yeah. And people will take it as gospel, and not
without
give anything
playing
else
around.
the time of day. Yeah, they're just like, this is what X person told me to use, so I'm gonna go after it, and I'm only gonna use this. It's like, all right, if that's what you want to do. Like I see it all the time when people either are asking in Discord or asking in Twitch chats or commenting on videos. They're like, hey, like why would I use this when I can use why would I use X when I can use Y?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know. It still works. It still works well. It's good. It still gets the job done. Does it still kill bosses? Does it still, can you still shoot aliens in the face with it? Absolutely.
I think the sentiment of like people wanting to be like as meta or as efficient as possible might come like I was just thinking about this actually. Could be wrong, but here's why. I think this might be a thing because I felt this way too. So talking for experience, but I'm thinking it might be because people are kind of feeling a little bit burnout by the game. So they're like, I don't want to spend so much time doing X activity when I can be putting on this loadout that's like super efficient, meaning that the activity will take less longer, right? So it's sad because when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I get it. You don't want to spend so much time, or you don't want to quote unquote waste time. But then you also like that's the point where you're like, oh, the game is that much kind of not enjoyable for people that are like, I just want to get the thing done, and that's it.
Yeah, if you've been playing for a while, you've done your lengthy grind for the weapons that you want, that you think do well enough. So it's like, and the perfect example is last season of the Deep. Looking at the Deep weapons, like, did they look cool? Absolutely, but weren't even really all that great. Not compared, not like from a number standpoint or a performance standpoint to stuff we already have. So like, I definitely still had that mindset a little bit last season where I was like, and I was looking at it today because somebody was talking to me about using the Strand vortex frame sword, and I was like, I looked at it and I was like, man, I'm only 3 of 5 on the red frame. I'm gonna have to go back and do deep dives to get my weekly red frame from there. You know what I'm saying? Which now I got to play catch up, but I'll do that probably later on in the season when things start to die down a little bit more. As Dan, you and I were talking in DMs yesterday about trying to, what is being caught up.
Oh yeah. There's no such thing.
Yeah, but I, speaking now specifically in the Destiny world and weapons, but it's tough because there are still new people trickling into the game. It's funny, Bergen and I did we were running some strikes while we were waiting for a buddy Saturday night, and we matched with a blueberry, and dude was very clearly struggling. We were running Lightblade, and he was using the stuff he had gotten from his new light quest. Very, very obviously a new player, and like it was kind of funny because we got to watch them figure out how to kill a Hive Guardian after they let it revive. We let it revive 4 or 5 times in front of them. So we went and finished it in front of them. And we were like, this is how you do this. But you still got new players coming to the game, so there's still those, if they are connected in the social media world or content creation world through Twitch, YouTube, whatever, TikTok, especially nowadays, then they're very impressionable on what is considered good or what they should spend their time chasing. And like Steph was saying, there's nothing wrong with being focused on wanting to be efficient, maximizing the best of your time. But at the end of the day, you got to remember it is a game. Unless you're doing this for money, which very few people are in the grand scheme of things. It's just a game. Like, play it, have fun, find something you enjoy, play it. Try something else. If it doesn't work for you, go back to what you liked, or try something. Try something else. I think a lot of people miss that point nowadays. That it's you should be having fun with this, and if you're not, maybe take a look at that.
So this reminded me that do you know Chris Fried is his name? He did Guardian Theater, so he's the mind behind that.
Okay. Yeah.
So a few months back, he subbed. Somebody gifted him a sub in the channel, and so he was in one of my sub nights that we ran, and I was like, hey, so what do we want to do with our night? I think it was Iron Banner week, and he was like, hey, so I built this new thing that could be fun. It could be awful. It could be a lot of fun though. And so it's called SRL 2. And it has nothing to do with Sparrow Racing League at all. But what it does is it takes a look. You load your Bungie name in, and you have to turn on certain abilities in your Bungie account so that this tool can read it, but it'll go through and tell you, okay, so these 6 guard, they all have this weapon in this slot. They all have this exotic, and they like it goes through and it finds out what your commonality is, and that is the that's the loadout for your team that you can then randomize and copy to clipboard to send to like Destiny Item Manager.
Yeah.
So everybody just loads the same loadout.
Interesting.
It's a neat idea. It was a little convoluted if I remember correctly for getting everybody set up. I think it like took like 5 minutes to explain like how to turn on the right things, but once you got that done, it was a lot of fun to run just random activities that way.
Yeah
It's super stupid.
No, but hey, I mean it breathes life, because how often have you done dim random raids or dim random Iron Banner or whatever? I mean, because that throws the the randomness into it, where it's like you don't know what you're gonna get. You could be running a 1600 sunset weapon that you haven't touched in 3 years, but you keep because it's sentimental to you or whatever, and you're oh crap, here we go, I'm using Midnight Coup and Midnight Coup and Recluse and Iron Banner, like let's go.
Right. Or like you'll find what I've found out of that, just random messing around, that kind of like just randomly hitting shuffle on dim. Sometimes you find a weapon that you end up loving beyond any shadow of a doubt. I'm trying to think of the last time, because I'm of the mind where it's like, you know what, I've been playing this a while, I'm just collecting toys at this point, and this toy does the job a little bit better. Yeah. And so I'm trying to think when the last time I was like truly surprised by something that was like pulled from dim was, and it might have been that vortex sword that you're talking about, that strand vortex sword, because it's really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where like I think my question was originally about like, it's not changing anything in your kit, because like you probably have already talked with your team. You probably already know what roles you're going to be filling. Crota is a reprised raid, so odds are a lot of the things are going to go unchanged in it. We do know that they are going to be changing some things up and also ramping up difficulty from what we saw from the showcase last week. What are you kind of thinking going into it? Like, what's a build that you're thinking about taking in? What do you think is going to be useful to you and your team?
So this is going to be kind of an interesting day one for me, because I am a Titan main by tradition, but I'm actually not going to be on a Titan for this day one. I'm going to be on a Warlock, and I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that. And I already have from a lot of people. But Warlocks are just so strong, especially in a contest mode environment, or a challenge environment.
Powerful.
Yeah. Oh my god. I had it was like a 400 or 500 long DM. It's a group that I normally raid with, and it was just after the changes at reset today about them fixing the Titan gauntlets that were broken, where you could swap to Synthos. And then I think it was in that Joe Blackburn article where he was talking about the inevitable nerf to well, and that's what people are alluding to in Lightfall. So it was this big long, like 500-600 long group chat that went on for like 4 hours today. People are popping in and out being like, oh my god, another 100 messages, like what are we talking about here? But yeah, I mean, well is just so strong, and especially in a day one environment. Now we have 30% DR from tier 10 resilience. You've got woven mail, you've got restoration, you've got devour, you've got overshields, like you've got knockout, you've got so many different ways to heal, stay alive. So it's like, but well is still, it's just supreme, especially for damage phases. So yeah, I'll be on a Warlock. It's funny because I've been talking with the guys that I'm raiding with, and I'll actually probably not be on well for a lot of it unless I have to. Just for like if we need 3 wells for some reason, like at the bridge encounter or something like that. But like loading in, like I'll probably end up loading in on an Arc Warlock with Vesper, just because if Lamps is the same way as it was in D1, which is, safe to say it probably will be to an extent. There will just be a ton of enemies getting thrown at us. Arc, explosive blinding rifts, arc souls for the entire team, using the new elemental orbs with arc, probably with forbearance, something like forbearance to clear thrall and get arc orbs, generate heavy. So like, I don't know, I think arc lock's gonna be really good at the beginning, and then probably maybe swap to a well for bridge. I think there's been a lot of leaks, and I don't want to talk about leaks.
Right.
But we know that things are going to change a little bit. Some encounters may change. They may add new things. In my mind, I was always thinking like, okay, maybe they'll take us through a random different door or a different direction. Like after the bridge, instead of going up the steps and going through that little hallway with the shriekers, maybe it takes us a different route, or something like that would be cool to see. But I mean, and then even for damage on Crota, I know they've said in the past where, like with Oryx, they want players to actually be able to damage the boss and not have it be a mechanic or a relic style damage for a raid boss. Just because it feels more, you feel like you're more in control of the situation. The whole fire team gets an opportunity to, chip health away from the boss. So it gets more people feeling involved. So that's to be expected maybe for Crota. And with how powerful Strand Warlocks are with DPS and the DPS rotation with rockets. And I won't go down the rabbit hole of that, but I'll probably on Strand Warlock for DPS. I don't know. We'll see. There's some fun loadouts and especially with Lowmans, in the last couple of seasons, I've been playing a lot of Warlock for some of the more challenging ones, and it's just Warlock's just really powerful. It's got a lot of really good builds. So do Hunters and Titans, but like I said, in those contest mode, challenge mode, master content or Lowman stuff, like Warlocks they're tough to beat, especially with how strong Well is still, even after the overshield nerf. So
it feels like they're just more, they have a lot of versatility to them in I was going to say their verbs, but that's not what I meant. Like, it just seems like they have a lot of versatility in the different classes that they have had introduced to them over time. That like when it comes to Titans just run up and smack things with their hands. Hunters have a good one-shot ability occasionally, and that's kind of part of their whole thing. But like Warlocks have always had more versatility in their toolkit.
I think too, just from I've always, at least in like MMO style games, I've always really enjoyed playing sort of a support or an offensive support style. Oddly enough, other than Destiny, where I enjoy playing Titan a lot. But like you said, that's just because you can kind of put your head down and put your shoulder down and just kind of go through stuff. But really playing into the fire team support role with a Warlock, whether that's rifts, arc souls, healing grenades, adding Lumen into the mix and being that guy that's like, hey, if you need support, like I got you. Buffs, debuffs, I'm your man. I got you. Let's go.
Heck yeah. Also, that buff to Lumina because the hand cannon buff. Like, how are you feeling about that?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So I didn't. I guess it was probably 2 or 3 seasons ago now. I started really like deep diving into Lumina and playing with it, and specifically in like raid encounters as we were trying to like either one phase bake bosses or again moving into like low man stuff where it's like, hey, we need to squeeze out every little juice of damage we can get. So how do we maximize everything? And a lot of people still sleep on Lumina even now. And I think hopefully with the hand cannon buff and the fact that it's an exotic primary and with the double special nerf generating heavy ammo, I think people are going to be really missing out if they don't have Lumen in their fire team, which I don't think a lot of people are really thinking about it because it's all about people are always like, okay, well, we got damage,
burst damage,
let's go from there.
Yeah,
it's like okay, but there are support tools there that are in the game, and you can always swap off it to like Touch of Malice or Outbreak if you need to for Final Stand. But yeah, it's been feeling really nice. Sunshot has been another one that has been feeling fantastic. Sunshot's always been kind of really good, but yeah,
the dude, all of the hand cannons, malfeasance. Like
I still haven't finished my catalyst I got it last season. I still haven't finished it, and I keep people always like, hey, let's go do this. We need people with malfeasance with their catalyst, and I'm like, I mean, if you can give me like 30-45 minutes to go jump into Shirochi, I'll be there. But yeah, it's the Destiny homework that I've been putting off among other things.
Right. So with that, when we opened the floor up for folks to ask questions. So, and we've had like Revenant on, and like these same kind of questions come up, but like Rich Widdowson asks, like, how do you start creating a build? Like, what is something that triggers your creativity for pushing an ability?
Honestly, a lot of it is dependent on kind of what the seasonal shift is going to be, whether it's, if it's a season that focuses on arc, void, solar, whatever, then, starting to look at, okay, what exotics are generally good with X type of subclass. I guess it was last season. Yeah, last season we had some really nice arc mods, amped up, electric armor, stuff like that. And I've toyed around in the past with Shinobu's Vow, and I'll use this build as an example. Using something that's kind of off meta. When you think of Arc Hunter, a lot of people were running, Assassin's Cowl, Liar's Handshake, Star Eater scales for damage. But nobody really paid any attention to Shinobu's Vow. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, I mean, this seems fun. Like, I really like, I liked it when Titans were really busted with storm grenades, and even then still are with pulse grenades and Heart of Inmost Light and just spamming all those. So like, let me look and see. All right, so it's an arc season. We got arc mods, Shinobu's Vow. Let's play into this. How are we going to make this work? And I just started messing around with it and trying to combine like aspects of other grenade builds into like, how do I make this work? Not just from a build standpoint, but how do I then tie in weapons to it, like demolitionist weapons? I ended up breaking out the old Salvager salvo that I hadn't touched in probably a year or more. I think it was still 1600 in my vault when I brought it up just to try it, and it just worked really well. And everybody was like, why are you using that? Why would you use it? I'm like, I don't know, it's fun and it works with the builds. It's got demo, so I throw grenades a lot. It reloads, I get kills with it. It gives me grenade energy. Like, I don't know what more else to tell you. It works.
It's just looking for that loop and that synergy.
Yeah, and whether you want the build to be damage focused. I mean, a lot of damage focused builds are pretty cut and dry. And then even more so, like the ability builds. I think when Bungie made the changes to the mod system, I guess it was it at the start of Lightfall? It was, right?
I think so.
But they overhauled the mod system, so we lost things like Font of Might and
yes, that was at Lightfall.
And I think that did a lot of good and a little bit of bad for build crafting, because it seems a little bit more simplified now. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just I'm trying to bring it back full circle to the question. Yeah, I mean, just finding an exotic that I want to use, that I like to play with exotics that a lot of people don't. Because I like kind of seeing that raised eyebrow, being like, well, why are you using that? Why wouldn't I just use this? I'm like, well, you can absolutely use this, but there's also this. And then I put out a couple videos about Shinobu's Vow, and out of the blue, I had a lot of people being like, why aren't you using Lucky Raspberry? And I'm absolutely mind blown. I'm like, who uses Lucky Raspberry? Like, and I think I posted on TikTok, and I had like easily probably 50 or 60 people commenting like, bro, try Lucky Raspberry. Why aren't you using Lucky Raspberry? I like Lucky Raspberry. It's my favorite exotic. And I'm like, I'm sold. I'll try it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I started using it, and I was like, this is actually kind of fun. I mean, you have to change up your play style a little bit. You gotta look at things a little bit differently, how you approach an encounter, to make it really shine. But I mean, I was like, this is it. This is it right here. This is people speaking up and being like, hey, there's lots of really good stuff out here. And it was just, it was kind of a really, I don't know, it was a really cool feeling, because I was like, man, everybody's not just like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like brain dead, just taking word of advice from YouTuber A, B, or C. They're actually like playing with stuff that they like to play with, and they're making it work. And I think that's awesome.
Heck yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of like ties into a question that Helian Idan has. Does it often feel like there is one best loadout to run for a given season? Is it actually viable to build into different niches in the game?
I mean, absolutely. That's a really good question. A lot of builds you'll see fluctuate throughout the seasons are based off of either a couple of different things: sandbox changes or the seasonal artifact. Those two things themselves really drive what people use for the season. If it's not something that's just like, I look at Starfire Protocol that was so strong for so long, it didn't really matter or Heart of Inmost Light on Titans. Just so strong for so long. It didn't really matter. You could just slap it on, you're good to go. But those things really, they really drive the narrative for what builds you're going to start seeing. And then of course you'll see, these builds really amp up in usage, and there'll still be those people that say, I've been using this still, and I'm glad more people are using it. But yeah, I mean, trying to think of what else to say on that. I don't. That's pretty much it.
Moshpat asks, well, he asked about how babies were made, but we're not that kind of show. We can talk about that later. But what do you find the easiest to build around? Exotics, supers, or how does the process begin there? I think we covered that a little bit with like what's going on in the season is like a good foundation point. But
yeah,
in that question, go ahead.
Yeah, again, that it kind of lies in what the seasonal changes are, what the sandbox changes are, what's going to be strong. I mean, I look at it's funny you mentioned Rev earlier because I was going to plan on bringing him up. He was running Foe Tracer, I think it was yesterday, and I've got like 3 or 4 people DMing me being like, "Yo, Rev's using Foe Tracer in Sarah's stream. Like, you got to watch this. It's kind of insane." And I was like, I was too busy at the time, and I was like, I'll get the TLDR later, and then. I see him tweeting about stasis with Aegir Scepter and Foe Tracer and how busted Foe Tracer is. And it's true because, Foe Tracer just got a massive overhaul. It just got completely reworked. So now it's got that stacking, that 4 times stacking, or is it 25%? I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's, it's got that damage when using, using ability, you get the damage buff for weapons that match your subclass. Excuse me. And, that really is the foundation for like new builds for new seasons is when Bungie puts out those patch notes and they're saying, hey, these are the changes we're making. That's when the gears start turning in the head being like, okay, what can we start looking at for next season? Like, could this potentially be good? And I try to preach like, wait until it actually ships to see what it looks like before you freak out about stuff. Cause oftentimes people will read the black and white in the now TWID, and say, oh my God, this is going to be broken, or oh, that's such a terrible change. And it's like, well, just wait till you get a chance to mess with it, and then you can make your judgment. But I think that's a perfect starting point is, when those notes come out, say, okay, how can we make this work? Using the notes that Bungie gives us, letting the brain juices start flowing and trying to figure out like, okay, how can I tie in what we currently have with what the pending changes are? And then season goes live. Try it. If it works, great, fantastic. But always look for a way to continue to tweak it because there may be something there that you don't see until 4 or 5 days later, a week later, 2 weeks later. And Rev talking about Foe Tracer is a perfect example. People knew that the changes were going to be coming with Foe Tracer, and I'm sure some people were probably screaming when they saw Rev's post. And Paul Tassi put out an article about Foe Tracer today, and I clicked into it. I was like, I know Rev's tweet's going to be in there. Sure enough, Rev's tweet was in there. So I kind of was like, oh, I see Rev. But sometimes that's what it takes is, we know the changes are there, but they get overshadowed by something new that comes out that we may not have known in the patch notes preseason, like Banner of War or Weave Walker. Oh man. Or Whirling Maelstrom. Like all the new strand aspects are absolutely bonkers.
I've been using Banner of War like almost exclusively on my Titan. It's so very dumb and very easy to like get winding up. Yeah. Very good. Sorry.
But yeah, just using that as a foundation, and then constantly just trying new things. Whether it is an exotic that focuses on weapon damage, then you look at the weapons initially. Like look at the weapons you want to tie in with it. Obviously, look at how you're going to stay alive. Things like recuperation, devour, restoration, overshields, woven mail. If it's a grenade build or an ability build, look at how you're going to maintain your ability uptime, tying in the mods and with the fragments and the aspects, and trying to match up and make sure things kind of like, if this does this, then this is going to, if my fragment is going to do this, it's also going to feed into this. So if my fragment's going to, I guess I was just talking about Briarbinds the other day, and I had never used, I can't remember the name of the fragment, but it's when you defeat a weakened enemy, it drops a Void Breach. Never touched it before this season. I was like, that's a terrible fragment. I'm never going to use that. It's trash. Put it aside. And then this season, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, well, with Briarbinds, I'm going to constantly be weakening things with multiple Void Souls. So why don't I slot this? I always have Void Breaches on the ground. So if I have Elemental Charge on, I can constantly be getting armor charges. So you just kind of like try and follow the breadcrumb trail of like, if this does this, then how can I get from this to something else? I don't know. It's just one of the fun things about testing builds and kind of goofing off. Try them in normal play and then take them into raids and see how they do and hope for the best.
Yeah. Rise of Bacon asks, your favorite metas past and present around builds and DPS?
Ooh. Okay. Titan main. Storm Grenade Titan was absolutely busted and fun as hell. With Heart of Inmost Light. God, that was such a fun season.
Just the wistfulness in your eyes as you just looked off into the middle distance.
So good. I love seeing Titans on top. I mean, Titans catch a lot of flack. I feel like Titans get nerfed. And maybe this is just, me being salty as a Titan main, but I feel like Titans get nerfed harder more than any other class. For good reason.
Yeah, you're being salty.
For good reason. All right. Well, Hunters are only going to get Stompies nerfed, and Warlocks, well, they still have Well. So until Well gets nerfed even harder, I don't want to hear from Warlocks.
Warlock only have Well right now. I mean, no, they're a little bit better now, to be fair. I'm joking, but like, dude, the amount of time where I have to play a Well just because, well, you're the only Warlock, so you have to play it Well. So like, yeah, you're being salty Titan. Sorry. Love you, but no.
There's a very easy solution to that, and that is to just make sure that when you're raiding, you have another Warlock with you, and you're like, hey, I brought my friend. They got the Well.
They're the Well. There you go. Oh my God.
But yeah, I guess that'd probably be one of my favorite metas was that. I would say Bonk Titan, but that's been kind of like an ever meta.
Yeah.
It's until Bonk gets nerfed again, even harder. It's fun, but again, like you were talking about with Banner War, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's fun because I can just kind of shut brain off, and as long as I don't as long as I don't throw my hammer and it doesn't hit something and I have to chase after it, it's just kind of like
swords, glaives, syntheseps. You're good.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all you got to do. And I'm just roaming through. I've got the radar antenna out the back. Come find me. I'm in the middle of the green circle.
Yeah.
That's it.
I will say another really fun one, and it hasn't really had its chance to shine, and I know a lot of people are really sad about that, but it's Behemoth in PvE.
Stasis. Revenant was like, why is Behemoth shit?
Dude, have you seen DVS? Have you seen DVS's tweets?
No. DVS always posts really good Behemoth stuff. I follow him strictly for that, just because I know he's gonna always put out good Behemoth content. But it's one of those things where it is incredibly strong, and I think a lot of people, it's again tying into this long conversation I had today with some of the dudes I raid with. Stasis only really, I feel like, had his chance to shine when Font of Might was there and everybody was running Reed's Regret. But other than that, like Stasis, and I guess maybe Stasis Warlocks and GMs with turrets when they first came out. But other than that, like, I don't feel like, I mean, Revenant, not Rev the person, but Revenant, the subclass, didn't really had its time to shine like some of the other Hunter subclasses have. And then Behemoth has always just been kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Titan subclasses. I love running it because I love throwing crystals down everywhere.
I think we talked about this last time, and then I experienced this when we were raiding. I think we did some of those Kingsfall clears for first timers together with Seth, and you were throwing nades.
Yeah. So, and I think that's why Behemoth catches a lot of flack, because it is a very trolly subclass. Like nobody likes the ice on the field unless they're the person creating the ice. So when there's a Behemoth running around with Hoarfrost Z, just creating stasis barricades, the glacial fortifications, and throwing down glacier grenades, and just everybody hates Behemoths. I don't know why. Yeah. But they're really good. I don't know why. And it's a really fun play style. I don't know. When Beyond Light came out, I fell in love with Behemoth, but it catches such a bad flack, and one day it'll be good. Probably not, but maybe one day.
What do you think Stasis needs to kind of like stand out from the rest of the pack now that we have?
It's a really good question. I think first and foremost, it needs to be brought up in line with the rest of the pack. The nerf to stasis shards, I think, was really detrimental, specifically for behemoths. Hunters for stasis on the Revenant subclass, it was really like Dustfield grenades. All right, cool. Warlocks, it was turrets, cold snaps with gosh, what's the exotic? I'm totally not scrolling through dim right now.
Osmiomancy?
Thank you, Osmiomancy.
There you are.
As I just scrolled down to the arms.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm a warlock mate, so yeah. That's my contribution.
See, I don't know that stuff. Tight main.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what it would take to make stasis better than the other subclasses. Getting it on par would just, I think, would be as simple as reverting some of the elemental shard changes, because that really, when we had started having void breaches, tangles, all that stuff that you have all these elemental items on the field from other classes, and then it just seemed like the hit that shards took, it seemed like a little bit of an overreach. So I think reverting that would be a good thing to bring it online. I would hate I one of the biggest things I don't like is seeing one subclass kind of like way stand out over the rest of them. I think the 3.0s did really good with trying to bring them all online in their own regard, outside of like outliers like Bonk or Well, but those are the outliers. Those are the rare cases. But overall, I think the 3.0s did a really good job, and Strand, ship strong like Bungie always does. New stuff always ships strong. I think it's really good from a marketing standpoint. Gets people talking about the game, talking about, what's hot, what's new, what's really strong. Oh, this new Strand stuff is really strong. You got to try it. And then there's the other people that are saying, oh, it's way too strong. Like, nerf it right now.
Yeah.
Kind of like Stasis was in PvP when it first came out. So I'd have to sleep on that. I'll be honest, to see what it would take to get Stasis to be more power. Maybe a new super for each subclass could be fun.
Yeah. I could see that.
I mean, what is it? They say new is always better. So I don't know. Maybe.
I also think and Rev has said this before in streams, but like Strand is better stasis like overall, and so when they shipped it, we've had the past couple seasons a very strong suspend, and I think it made people like take the action figure and be like, what? I've got this action figure now? I'm going to play with this one. This one's new. This one's got scuff marks on it. That kind of thing.
That's a very good analogy.
Thank you. It's all toy box stuff. That's all this is. But when it comes to like Stasis or Strand just recently got the nerf to suspend, which I'm honestly not really feeling all that much. Like I would like to see Stasis come up just to kind of like keep pace with the rest of the groups. Because variety, spice of life, the whole thing. Revenant also asks, why is your latest build pay to win?
Okay, so I gave options to make so it's not pay to win. So first and foremost, it's not wholly pay to win. However, there are pay to win aspects, if you want to call it that, with Tessellation, with the announcement of Final Shape pre-orders taking off. You're able to pre-order the Final Shape, and you get this fancy new exotic Tessellation, similar to how Quicksilver Storm was released. I kind of have mixed feelings about that, about releasing stuff behind a paywall. Again, it's an option, and it's not necessarily anything game breaking, which I think makes it okay. But damn if it isn't fun. So people will get a chance to play with it that don't pre-order when Final Shape comes out. So I'm kind of torn, and there's obviously the drama nowadays with people pre-ordering and then canceling their pre-order, and which I reserve judgment on. But I just think it's really fun and it's really good. And Quicksilver Storm did it really well when they released it, as far as like offering an alternate firing mode with the grenade launcher. And I think Tessellation does that to an even better degree. Because if you're running an ability build and you're constantly, you've got near 100% uptime on your grenades, you can just slot one right in and you get a juiced up shot that's like an Izanagi honed edge, but it's Strand. You can tie that into, a lot of people are using bait and switch rotations for DPS. So last week we went into King's Fall. We ran a trio King's Fall, and I was like, I'm going to try this out against Golgoroth, and it worked really well. I mean, I was doing more damage with a charged shot from my tessellation than I was with a bait and switch, like fully charged bait and switch shot on my Cataclysmic. So I was like, this is kind of nuts. Obviously it's an exotic, so you couldn't pair it with his Zanagi's Burden, which I think is a good call, because that'd be kind of bonkers. Yeah. But I just really enjoy it, and tying it in with the Moth Keepers and Strand, because you get 3 grenades. It seems like a no-brainer. The Moth Keepers are a lot of fun. I know a lot of people. I just put out a video 2 days ago, and people are still like, I'm never going to use this. Like, it doesn't seem like it's good at all. And I'm like, again, give it a try first before you throw it into the wind. But it's just, it's fun and it's good. It does a lot of really good things. With ad clear, you got void overshields. You've got, if you're on arc, you can jolt targets with it. You can jolt champions and stun overloads. It intrinsically stuns unstoppable champions. And I think a lot of people look past that. They look past the utility of it, and they're just like, man, I can't use it to be top of the DPS leaderboard, or use, do something broken like Bonk Hammer can do. So that's trash.
Yeah. Easy to throw it in the bin when it's not putting out. Yeah. But
that requires a mind shift change for a lot of folks. And I think a lot of people are hopefully not past that, but I think some are, where it's just like it's a very narrow minded way to look at things. And it takes away from a lot of fun, I think, if you don't have that variety.
Sidebar question. Have you used Lament against Rolk, Nezarec, and Atheon yet?
Like ever, or
like ever
season? Like
ever.
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, you should do that sometime.
It's funny you say that, because like I was thinking later on in the season, actually after Crota starts to die down in a couple weeks, of doing like once a week, just doing like we were talking about earlier, and Steph was talking about, like, I just want to raid. I just want to do fun, stupid stuff and raids with friends, whether it's like running 6 Rat Kings or running 6 Laments, or, pick your poison. Whether it's, having a spin wheel and doing like, hey, we're going to, this week, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And, is it going to suck? Probably.
Yeah.
Are we going to laugh? Yep.
Absolutely.
Are we going to have a stupid good time? Yep. Are we going to get done? Who knows? But we're going to have fun doing it.
So Rolk is a solid 2-phase with Lament. Like you have like 5 Laments and like a tractor cannon. Or if you wanted to like take that 15% off, if you wanted to use Heart Shadow, and so everybody's just rocking swords.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun.
About Heart Shadow.
Yeah, everybody does. But it's pretty fun. It's also pretty fun on Rolk. Atheon has had mixed results. The first time we did it, it was like
he detained somebody.
Well, yeah. But like it was a solid 2-phase. And if you looked out for people who were like lit up like a Christmas tree, it's like, it's you, leave, get out
of here.
Like stop chopping. And so, but when it came to like, I think the second time we tried it, it was like god awful DPS. Like he was just stomping around and nobody could connect to his legs. It was like some sort of weird thing. But there's a challenge for you. Lament.
I'll have to add that to the mix.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. M Mills, I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
M Mills, should perk synergy or stats be the primary theory for a build?
That's kind of a tricky one. It depends really on what you're using the build for. You're looking at, doing things like GMs, master raids. Stats kind of take a priority. Some stats kind of take a priority. Resilience, we're in such a weird spot right now with damage resistance, and being kind of pigeonholed into tier 10 resilience. If you want to maximize your survivability, like when I'm making builds, that's always the first stat. I get a D2 armor picker, pick whatever class, whatever exotic I'm going to build around, and then I put in my stats. Well, actually, I put my fragments in that have the pluses and minuses. Then I put my stats, and it's always immediately first tier 10 resilience. Boom. Like without question, don't care what the build is. I'm always, even if I'm on a hunter and I would want mobility and recovery. Like a lot of my hunter builds have like tier 5 mobility, and people are like, like, how are you not maxed out on mobility as a hunter? Do you want to be dodging all the time? I was like, I mean, do I really want to be rolling around on the floor every 30 seconds?
Yeah,
do I
you don't need it.
But resilience is just such an insane stat right now with the DR. So I mean, I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. So resilience, yes, absolutely. That should be the first thing. And then you look at, okay, what does the exotic do? I'll use sun bracers as an example. I think a lot of people, and I see this all the time. I shamelessly, not in a bad way, but I shamelessly judge people's builds when I like right click on them on my friends list, or if I'm in a fire team with them and I just kind of glance over and I'm like, sometimes I'm left scratching my head. Other times I'm like, all right, that dude knows what they're doing.
You did that to me recently.
Well, that was just to mess with you. But
Yeah. Sure.
that's what I say. I don't do it in a bad way. I'm just kind of like, I like to see what people are doing, because it also kind of gives me insight as somebody that like enjoys putting builds together. Like I've loaded into the tower before, and I've literally scrolled through and I've looked at every single person and been like, nobody in this tower has like an actual build put together. It's just kind of like, it looks like they just kind of like grabbed a handful of like marbles and like threw them out there, and they're like, that's what I'm gonna go with.
I think I was that guardian.
Which there's nothing
before.
Again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Before loadouts were in the game, I was that guardian, and then like as loadouts have become more ingrained in the game itself, rather than like as this kind of like tertiary. Hey, maybe if you find a YouTuber that you like that has like a dim link in there in the description of the video, like when it turned from that to, oh, I can save this in the game and I can just swap to it if I want to push into a certain fantasy, then that is what made loadouts more real to me, I guess. Yeah. So
no, that makes sense. But yeah, so to get back to it, I mean, resilience kind of forces a lot of players' hands when they're looking at builds from a competitive, I should air quotes that competitive aspect. And then you look at the exotic and say, what does it do? So again, to get back to it, Sunbracers, it's a grenade focused exotic, kind of. When I first made a Sunbracers build, I thought just that. I was like, oh, it's a grenade build. Tier 10 discipline. Easy. Yeah. And then somebody was looking at it, and then we were talking about it one day, and we're like, why do you have tier 10 discipline on that? I was like, well, it's grenade exotic. And they're like, yeah, but you get your grenades back for free whenever you get a melee kill. So why do you have
build into it?
Why do you have any discipline? I'm like, it's a very good point. Let me just, give me
You're a very smart man.
Let me rework this real quick. So
you're a very smart man. How much do I owe you?
Yeah. So I kind of even it out a little bit, and I still see people, and they're like, oh, I've got triple hundreds. It's like on my Sunbracers build, it's like resilience, great, recovery, fantastic, discipline. I mean, yeah, okay. So it's kind of like a, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, like it's a staggered focus, I guess, if you will. And that you kind of want to go back and forth depending on like what the exotic is you're using. But in my mind right now, until they make any changes to damage resist, like tier 10 resilience is always the first thing. And then I look at the exotic and I say, okay, like what does it do? How can I build around it? And then I look at stats. Then I look at the rest of the stats, whether it's discipline or strength. I pretty much never spec in intellect, never spec into mobility unless I'm on 100 and I put a little bit there. And then recovery is usually pretty high. But it's definitely a back and forth. Depending on what it is you're going for.
It definitely feels, for me, in my personal experience, it feels like with supers, they just come and go. It doesn't, like, you can spec into getting it faster, but rarely do I see a benefit of getting it over, like, unless I'm trying to maximum DPS something, rarely do I see the benefit of
you don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's not a thought, like, again, using Sunbracers as an example, like your thought when you're using something like Sunbracers is, I need a melee charge and I need something to kill so I can throw a lot of grenades. Yeah, that's it. That's all I really care about. Unless, like you said, you're worried about juice and damage, like we've talked about before in raids with friends, where it's like, hey, all right, our one well warlock, they put their well down in damage phase. All right, in between damage phases, they need to get grenade kills so they can get their well back, so we can have it for damage phase. So let them kill a bunch of stuff first. But other than that, intellect and super regen just kind of, a lot of times, like 99% of the time, probably is just kind of an afterthought. You just you use them when you got them, or when it's damage phase, you use it if you got it. If you don't, if it's subsequent damage phases and you don't have it, it's like, well. And we've been to them where we don't have a well. It's like, hey, throw down a rift and we'll just come and try and make it work. Let's go. Yeah.
Does my question here is, when it comes to PvP, like that mentality of swapping, of build crafting for intellect, does that shift? Are you then trying to perk in to try to get your super faster for earlier rounds?
Depends on the game mode. I mean, if we're talking like trials or anything with like a capture the point objective, sure, absolutely. Because you've got bubble titans and well warlocks that are constantly trying to like get their super to win that final. Like use a trials card as an example. Like this morning I was playing trials before reset and we won. Granted, we were up 4-2, and one of my teammates was absolutely slaying out. He was a well warlock, and he got his well, and like I said, we were up 4-2. He got his well that last final round, and one of our teammates died. He got his well, just went to put a well down on the point, and it was like, boom, game over, man. Like straight up Bill Paxton style. Like there's nothing you can do.
Perfect. Okay. So, yeah.
So I think there's definite, and I won't pretend like I know a whole lot about the build crafting from the PvP side of the house. I know enough because I mostly do PvE. And a lot of that transfers over to PvP because people look at my builds and they're like, "Yeah, you're definitely a PvE guy, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" But yeah, I mean, at least from what I've seen in my little bit of time in trials and the competitive game mode, I mean, yeah, absolutely, it changes definitely. But I mean, you also have different look at mods too, as far as like you're not putting on scavs or when you're Dirty Titan main again, when I'm running Arc Striker Titan in trials, and I'm like, okay, I'll have heavy handed on, or I'll have not grenade kickstart firepower. So that way, if I tag somebody with my lightning grenade and I get a kill, there's an orb. All right, I can push, I can be aggressive, and then I scoop that orb up. I've got grenade energy back. I've got recuperation off of it, so I get a little bit of healing. So I mean, there's definitely a build crafting aspect to the PvP side of the house, but I think it's definitely pales in comparison to the PvE side. Which is not saying one is better than the other. It's just
right.
The mindset shift is different. The goal is different of what you're trying to achieve, I feel, for the most part. And obviously, there's not wave after wave of guardians throwing themselves at you that you can shoot in the face once and they die and give you super energy.
I don't know, man. Boner Killer 69, just like trying to come after you every time they spawn in. I've seen you. Oscar Mike asks, why is the concept of challenge in Destiny, in quotes, not based more on the builds you're running, but the difficulty of the content? So meta builds lower the difficulty, but it seems like people are averse to going off meta to create challenge. I think part it's because Bungie has been like, you've got to be this tall to ride.
It sets the floor for like, these are the requirements. Like, you meet these requirements. This is the challenge requirements. If you can make it easier by running a meta build, that's what they're there for. They're there to make your life easier. I mean, that's why build crafting exists in any game, in any MMO. It allows you to do your job, or I use that not as an actual like official job, but like to do your job better. Whether that be to do damage, clear ads, survive. The builds are just there as a tool to allow you to meet the challenge floor. So I mean, yeah, meta builds lower the difficulty. That's just kind of that's just how it is. I think a lot of that too depends on the individual. Again, it's a mindset. So whether you want to be as efficient as possible or whether you want to challenge yourself and have fun. I'll use that Oryx checkpoint I did on Saturday night with Bruno and Bergen. Like, Bergen was on a well warlock. Bruno and I were both on warlocks, but we were both on void. I was running nothing manacles, which people still are like, why the hell are you doing that? I'm like, hey, I get 2 weaken grenades. That means we don't have to run div. I got you through the whole damage phase, so I can chuck one at the beginning, I can chuck one halfway through, and we've got 15% weaken the entire time. And it's off meta because people would just be like, oh, we'll just bring a div. Like, div's easy. Well, in a low man, you gotta kind of shift things up because every little bit, every gun matters. Every little bit of damage matters. It comes full circle, that mindset of people wanting to be as efficient as possible. And if people just want to get stuff done, I mean, we're at the point we're in. What, Destiny came out in 2014, so we're rapidly approaching year 10. I think less and less people are playing the game for fun in a weird way. Like less and less people are playing it for fun or because they enjoy like that aspect of the game, and more people are playing it for like, let me get my stuff and get out.
Yeah.
And I think that drives a lot of that.
Mm. I feel like another part of this is also like we have a lot of higher tier players in Destiny 2. And like a lot of you guys have like shown up on the show and like we've talked and everything. And like I feel like we have this raid race coming up on Friday. You're kind of locked into a handful of things in order to even be competitive for the race. If you're going for that number one spot. And so I think a lot of that kind of seeps into your mindset of like, well, I'm locked into this and I have to play this in order to achieve the thing that I want. And you're probably playing that a lot and you're probably practicing with it a lot. And so that's all you're seeing. When you're doing that, it's got to feel like you're eating the same meal every day, like for 3 squares, right? Like
it does.
Yeah. So
100%. That hits the nail on the head. I mean, for and I'll speak for myself, not for anybody else, but like, you know, when I'm rating or like using the day one as an example, like, you know, using the absolute best, you know, best in slot meta stuff as much as I can, because that is the time for it. That's, you know, for anybody that's going for, you know, either going for the belt or going for good placements, like they're gonna use everything they can. And then after the fact, it's like, okay, do I want to shift my mindset? Do I want to go back to having fun, or do I want to go through and get these done as efficiently as possible? So, you know, whether it's, you know, if you're running raid Sherpas and there's people, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you think about it, there's people that are just trying to get people through raids as quickly as they can to puff their numbers or to look better, or there's people that want to do that because they genuinely enjoy helping people in the community. You know, that's when we start to see the mindset kind of shift a little bit and spread out a little bit. It's like, okay, how are we, you know, do you want to be that person that stresses out about sweating it out and using every single optimal thing you can, or do you want to kind of do well but have some fun?
Yeah.
Because again, and I hate saying this because I do sound like a broken record, but it's true. It's like it's a video game. Have some freaking fun with it. Like, it's not, there's a fraction of a percentage of people that get paid to play video games in life. If you're not getting paid, chill out, like relax. It's not the end of the day.
All right. Well, Hater, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And I should do it more often. I should extend the invite out.
Hey, like I said, I know you got, you know, you're pick of the litter, and there's a lot of great people out there. So even just being considered, or, you know, dropping a DM like the other week and it couldn't, you know, didn't end up happening, but even just being considered is, trust me, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling.
Well, hey, I'll remember that. I don't know what else to say.
But I'll tell you what, though, I am going to try those lament runs, and if they end up being terrible, you're
Lament's fun on Rolk because he doesn't laser beam. He only stomps.
True.
Okay. So if you're right up on him, just start smacking him with Lament and like a tractor cannon or heart shadow for the for that. Rolk, you don't even have to argue about what plate you're going to fire from.
Everybody, get him!
Everybody, just start kicking, and he'll jump up.
Being chaotically fun.
It is incredibly fun. In both cases, there is a risk of death. I'm not going to say that there's
100%.
not, but it is chaotically fun because you're not arguing over like, oh, what plate are we doing damage from? You're just rushing up and you're beating the snot out of the kid, right?
Yeah.
And so it's he when he jumps up and disappears, you're not worried about firing at the div. You're not worried about your div ammo. You're just like, he's going to reappear 2 feet that way, and we're going to smack him again.
We stand here till he reappears. All right, he's here again.
Yeah, he's here again. Yeah. So it's pretty fun. It's a pretty good time. But Hater, enough about me. What about you? Where can people find you on the internet, specifically on this Friday that is coming up?
So this Friday, obviously, it's the Crota's End Day 1 raid race. I'll be live shortly before the race starts. Race starts at 1 p.m. Eastern time. when the raid goes live. I'll be live shortly before there. Twitch.tv/haterade with 3 A's, because 2 wasn't enough. And yeah, it'll be a good time.
Heck
I'm actually
yeah.
really excited because this is going to be one of the first years that like I'm really pushing for a good placement with a team of guys that are really, not that people I have rated in the past weren't good,
Right.
but these guys are a little bit more focused on like, hey, let's kind of like we were talking
place.
about. Let's bring everything. We're not here to mess around. We're not gonna pause to take a look at our loot. We're not gonna screenshot every encounter. Like let's just
Yeah.
let's
Nobody's
go.
making a guide here. Let's go. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Who all's on your team?
So I don't know if you know CWG.
Yeah, I've had him on the show.
C-Dub. Yeah.
Yeah.
So C-Dub's taking a break from Wayfinder to join us.
Okay.
And then the rest of the guys are from Clan Retraced. We've got Novers.
Okay.
He used to be next up Nova from Six Fronts. And then Aeon's Outlet and Exalted Panda. So
Cool.
it's kind of interesting. So I've only raided with these guys a couple times. I saw that Eons was looking for a fill, and I needed a team because my team from the last couple of day ones fell apart because guys were just like, yeah, I'm not going to do it this time. So I'm really excited to try it with a new group. And I think we're gonna do pretty well. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Cool. And if people want to find your builds, where can they find those?
YouTube.com/haterade. And then I've been posting more on TikTok. It's funny, when I first started posting on TikTok like a year ago, I was like, man, I'm old, like I can't be on this app, like what am I doing? But I've really I just enjoy editing short form content.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't know if it's about the visual appearance or because I'm like, hey, I have to condense as much information as I can into this short period of time, so I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm just gonna be like, hey, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is what you need. So, so take a lot of stuff on TikTok. I actually really started posting stuff on Instagram too, but my Instagram's been like vastly like not forgotten about, but I definitely have not been posting over there. But yeah, so definitely TikTok and YouTube are the two main places to find me for builds. And if you're looking for no BS, like straight to the point, like, hey, just tell me what I need to put on. Definitely either YouTube Shorts or TikToks or where it's at,
or Instagram Reels.
or Instagram Reels now. Yes, I put one today up. I put my Briarbines build that I put up last week. It's on Reels now. I just got to be better about posting it on eight different platforms.
My name's Danfinity. You can find me on the Twitter and the Instagram and the TikTok at DanfinityGG. You can also find me on Twitch 3 days a week, twitch.tv/Danfinity, helping Guardians with in-game activities, also playing Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield and Sea of Stars. It's been a busy week. It's kind of been crazy. If you'd like to support the show, remember to rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Anything you say helps us in the algorithm. And if you want to give a couple bucks a month to help keep the lights on, head on over to coffee.com/Danfinity. That is ko-fi.com/Danfinity. All the links are in the show notes. Good luck out there, Guardians, and I hope you find what you're grinding for.